this. You need to subscribe to this YouTube channel. The last posting is yesterday's lesson. So if you missed yesterday, you should take notes on what we did yesterday, because it's all there from beginning to end. And today's lesson, it'll be on there as well, as soon as fourth period comes along, because I post it fourth period. So if you subscribe, you'll get a notice as soon as I post it.
The cell membrane?
Yes, cell membrane is what it's called. Am I clear on this? Yes or no? Maybe not? Okay. So I'll post it on Schoology, but people keep telling me that on their Schoology they're not able to access it, blah blah blah. That's fine. I have to tell these people they have to allow this channel. I've tried to call them several times. I put in a ticket again. That's not an issue. For the short term though, subscribe to the channel. Take notes on the material if you missed a day, especially. Thank you for cleaning up. I really appreciate that. Psst. I really appreciate that. I can't tell you how many kids leave a mess. Yeah.
So these 3 videos is what we will be reviewing on the test? The quiz?
And you got to watch it. You got to talk to your classmates. You guys got to help each other out. I can't have a third of the class late and me trying to catch a third of the class up every day. If you have any of these questions, you can come after school. I'll be here after school. I might have a meeting or not, I don't know, but I'll be here after school today. All right? So YouTube, time01ster@gmail.com. Make sure you subscribe, and no more excuses when you're about being late. Your test will come when I feel like you're ready. I will feel like you're ready when I ask questions and I get answers that are reasonable, and when I see notes that are on task and I see quizzes that are passed, then I feel confident, or the time runs out. We have a lot to cover, and I have to cover the material. Because you have an end of course exam, there will be no excuse. Is that clear?
Yes.
So you'll get the test in due time. When people walk in 20 minutes, 13 minutes late, and they have a breakfast from an outdoor, I'm wondering, why did they stop for breakfast and they knew they were running late? That's what comes into my mind, just let you know. But I'm not. All right. So when we're dealing with the cell membrane, that's the outer surface. And as we talked about, there are phospholipids on the outside of the membrane, the cell membrane. The cell membrane has more, as you saw yesterday in the video, and I'll post it again on Schoology, assuming you can watch it. Has a bunch of proteins and other types of lipids. One of the things it has in the membrane is a double ring structure called cholesterol. You've heard of cholesterol. Now, cholesterol is a lipid. It's and when we look at animals, and only animals, by the way, cholesterol is only found in animals.
Wait, I got a question.
Yeah.
So, like, when you go to the doctor, like, and they tell you got a high cholesterol, how is it only found in?
It's not only found in the membranes, but it is found in the membranes in animals. It is also found in your blood.
Right.
So they have, and what you'll find is there's two types of cholesterol that they can read when they do a blood test in a doctor's office. They do an HDL and an LDL. The high density lipids, that's, if I remember correctly, that's the good kind of cholesterol that you would want to find. So you want that number to be high. And the LDL, the low density lipids, you want that number lower. But that's your blood cholesterol. This cholesterol is the same molecule, it's just found in the membranes. It's necessary. You make your own cholesterol. You don't have to eat it. How much fat you eat does help determine how much cholesterol you make. How much saturated fat you make does impact that. Saturated fat you eat. And you remember what saturated fat is, correct? It's a straight chain, carbon-hydrogen chain, no double bonds. If you don't know that, you should write it down. Put it on an index card and memorize it. Not only is it important for this class, it's also going to be important for your life. Saturated fat is a fat or fatty acid, any fat that has no double bond. A fatty acid, it does not have a double bond. That's a saturated fatty acid. An unsaturated fatty acid is one that has a double bond. We've gone over that, but you can go over yesterday's notes, so you can take a look at it again if you'd like. Now, when we look at animals, and we look at the...
Do you want the ones that weren't here just be 0, or do you want
Leave it blank. I'll have to discuss that with everyone at the end of class, because I still have like probably 5 kids missing. So if we go and we look at June, July, if I look at June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, and April, and then May, right? If I look at the months of the year, and I look at the level of cholesterol, the concentration, I'm making this graph up to show you a trend. So don't think about these as real numbers, but think about the trend. And I look at concentration of cholesterol in the membrane. Remember, square brackets mean concentration.
What's that word? Cholesterol?
Yes, ma'am. So the concentration of cholesterol in the membrane, what we find is it's relatively low in June, July, August, October, and then come December, it starts to go up. And it stays pretty high in December, January, February. Come March, it comes back down again. And it stays low over again in April and May. So that was one of the clues that helped us understand what cholesterol is doing in the membrane. What do you think it's doing in the membrane?
Raising.
What do you think cholesterol is doing in that membrane? So it's high. Look at the graph and come up with a hypothesis. Make an educated guess. What?
It's raising dependent on the month.
On the month, okay. I mean, yeah, that's what the graph shows. But so, what does that mean? Say again.
I said that maybe the cell or the person's doing something different during those months, that it's raising.
Something's different during those months that it's changing? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. What's different? The weather's different. What's happening in December and January and
Oh,
February?
the colder it gets.
The colder it gets, the more cholesterol is in the membrane. See, do you see, that's it. You guys can do that on your own. You don't need each other or me to do it for you. You can look at a chart and say, wow, there's this graph. It's showing December and during these months, what is so special about December, January, February, and March, really November, December, January, March, that is different from June, July, or April, May, June, July, and August, or June, July? It's cold. It's cold during these months. Well, during cold weather, animals put cholesterol in their membranes to keep them fluid. You saw yesterday the membrane is fluid. It moves, it flows. It has to. A cell can't work if the membrane acts like a wall. The membrane is not a wall. Yeah. Animals put cholesterol in their membranes during winter months. Why do they do that? It could be to keep them warm. That's a very good idea. See, that's making connections, right? He's like, it's cold. They're putting cholesterol in. Maybe it makes them warmer, right? Well, it acts like antifreeze. You know, you add antifreeze to your radiator so that your radiator doesn't freeze when it gets cold. Well, the cholesterol acts like that. It keeps it fluid. Remember how it works. As the molecules get slower, how do you go from a liquid to gas?
You heat it up.
Right, you add heat. And that increases kinetic energy. Increase kinetic energy. And if you want to go from a liquid to solid, which is freezing, when you have to decrease kinetic energy. So your temperature goes down. Okay? So if we add cholesterol, to the membrane, as these molecules slow down, they can't get as close to one another. They can't turn into a solid, because cholesterol is pushing them back out, away from each other. And the same with the unsaturated fatty acids. The more unsaturated fatty acids you have in your membrane, the more kink they have. The saturated ones are pretty straight. The more kink they have, the more bend they have, the fatty acids have, the more fluid the membrane. You want your membranes to be fluid. You want them to be able to change and move and be able to be reactive to the environment. If you had them all saturated, they would stick together and freeze at a lower temperature. You don't want to freeze, right? That's not good. The cell will break apart. You don't want your cell to break, you want it to bend. Does it make sense? So cholesterol helps to do that. The unsaturated fatty acids in the lipids and the cholesterol helps to keep the membrane fluid. Yeah.
Could a membrane overbend? Is there something that makes the membrane bend too much?
To bend less, yeah, because what we do to make it bend less, to make it less fluid, right? What do we do? What do animals do? Lower the cholesterol. Take the cholesterol out in the summer and in the winter. You don't need it as fluid. You don't want it to be too fluid. You have to keep it right. So that brings us to this. That brings us to this idea, and we're gonna see this idea come up over and over and over again. This word called homeostasis. Homeostasis, keeping it the same. Keeping it the same. How do you keep something the same when things are always changing? How do you keep everything the same when something's always changing?
Find a different replacement or different variable to fill in for it that is the same route.
That's a really good idea. Yeah, that's an interesting and complicated way of thinking. It's really, your mind is, it's impressive. All right, so here's what I want you to do. I want that whole table to get up and stand over here on this side. This whole table to get up and stand over there on that side. Keep your mask on. Just leave it there until you're ready to clean up. Right? You can just leave it there and then clean up it later. All right, you all form a chain. Form a chain, hold hands. Just hold hands. Yeah, you have to hold hands. And you all hold hands. You can wash your hands afterwards. Make sure if you're uncomfortable. And you come over here. You, leader, over here. Yeah, fudge. Go, lead over there. Lead your chain over there. Do not hurt each other. Now you two, you're one group. You're group A. You're group B. Group A and B, hold hand. I want you all to pull this way, and all of you to pull that way. Go ahead, without hurting each other. All right, stop right about there. Are you all pulling at about the same strength?
No.
Pull. Don't hurt each other. All right, now pull less, because I can see she's in pain. Pull less. You don't have to pull her arms off. All right. So I want you to start pulling a little more. So how do you keep it the same? How do you keep that tension the same if he's pulling more?
Become stronger, like a stronger.
Like if we want her hands, those hands in the center, not to move, and he's pulling like a tug of war, right? It's a tug of war. He's pulling that way. What do you all have to do to make it not move? You have to pull harder. So you have to change to keep it the same. No, you don't have to pull. I don't want anyone hurting each other. I just want you to get the idea. If he pulls more in that direction, go ahead and pull more in that direction. You would move. But if that moves, you die. So you don't want it to move. You don't want the hand to move. He's trying to pull that. He's pulling that way. It's happening. So what do you all have to do? You have to pull in the opposite. You have to change. You have to change in order to keep that center point the same. Does that make sense? All right, go on, take a seat. Wash your hands if you'd like to, or use hand sanitizer. So often what happens in homeostasis, and this is what's happening here, when you see it here, this is why this is changing. This changes. You get more. It starts to increase cholesterol and then decrease. You're constantly getting an increase in cholesterol and a decrease in cholesterol, and then it stays the same, and an increase in cholesterol and decrease in cholesterol and an increase in cholesterol. This cyclic change that happens every several months for every animal, that change is so that you can keep the fluidity, the membrane, the same fluidity. You're trying to keep membrane fluidity the same. But you can't keep it the same by keeping everything else the same. You would think, how do I keep things the same? I have to keep everything the same, right? Yeah, you can't. Because the temperature's changing. It gets colder in the winter and it's warmer in the summer. And the spring and the fall are in between. So you have to change with the seasons in order to keep this the same. This is what's important to your body, to animals. So animals change the cholesterol level so that they can keep the fluidity the same. So in order to keep the fluidity constant, you change. Yeah. Wait, say it. What'd you say?
When you was talking about cholesterol and it came around December, I thought you was talking about the holidays and how much you eat.
Well, that's a really good connection. Yeah, I like that. I like that connection. It's a good one. Holidays, yeah. Yeah, I mean, cholesterol, eating a lot of fats. You think, man, that's not something somebody used to put their cup here with very sugary stuff and did not wash up. Eggs have cholesterol. But I have to tell you that as far as I can tell from what I've read, and I'm not a doctor, so talk to your doctor, how much cholesterol you eat doesn't really impact your blood cholesterol. So but what does is saturated fats, which the things that have a lot cholesterol also have a lot of saturated fats. So saturated fats in your diet, you want to keep that to a minimum. And there's another thing called trans fats, which we're not going to talk about. The AP kids will, but you won't. There are these things called trans fats that you'll find in McDonald's French fries and a lot of different fried foods. Those trans fats can have a really bad impact on your cholesterol level and your artery blockages and the aging of your membranes and the rest of your body. So be careful with trans fats and saturated fats, things with a lot of butter, a lot of animal fat. Stay away from animal fat in general. Keep it down to a minimum. Doctors say animal meat, you should be eating like maybe twice a week, not 3 times a day. Not bacon, hamburgers, and then pot roast, I mean, most people eat meat 3 times a day. That's really not the ideal. The ideal would be eating, if you're going to eat meat, animal meat, you should eat it twice a week, not 3 times a day. Yeah.
Wait, so if it's
True, because my mom told me it was like raw bacteria in pork. Is that true?
If you cook it, there shouldn't be anything alive. Eating pork has any meat. Let's be clear. Any meat can have parasites and bacteria. It's meat. It's alive. If you cook it, everything should be dead. If it's cooked well. But if you don't cook it well, you can get sick. Food poisoning, you can get worms, you can get all kinds of parasites and bacteria and viruses. But if you cook it, you should be all right. Now, I'm telling you this, but I'm also telling you, you should reduce the amount of animal, and 2 things that are a problem for this country. Animal meat, it's too much of it. Like my wife and I tried to reduce the amount of animal meat we eat. I used to be a vegetarian, I'm trying to get back to that, but that's my choice. Then the second thing is sugar, refined sugar, fast sugar. Sugar that drops in your blood quickly and raises your blood glucose quickly. Stay away from it. The less of that, now does that mean not eat it? No. But instead of 6 teaspoons of sugar in your coffee, just 2. Instead of eating the candy, eat an apple. Now, is there sugar in an apple? Yes, but it's not as quick, it doesn't as quickly increase your blood sugar as a spoonful of sugar or a candy bar. So there's sugar in everything, but what you want is complex carbohydrates. You don't want simple carbohydrates. You don't want the monomers. You want the polymers. You want the stuff that's in there and that has that takes time for your body to take the sugar out of the food. If the sugar drops quickly, that might be a problem for you. And so if you're going into a coma and you're diabetic, then you want the fast-acting sugar. But if you're not a diabetic, you're not going into a coma, you want to reduce how much of that fast-acting sugar you drink. The worst, I'm telling you, is a soda pop. The worst thing you can do is drink your sugar, because that will go so quickly into your blood, it's not even funny. Yeah.
So when you eat sugar, is it really makes you hyper and stuff?
Sugar does not make you hyper. That's not something that is real. It will drop. We'll talk about that later. It's part of this homeostasis discussion, but we could talk about it now, but I'll have to integrate it into the membrane. Yeah.
Is there sugar in bread?
Yes.
Yes, yes. Bread is made of sugar. Bread is just sugar. Flour is it's a plant sugar. The difference. White bread specifically is one of those fast-acting sugar sources. It's a simple carbohydrate. So eating white bread is not something that you really should be shooting for. Eating something like a complex, something like a whole grain. You've heard of whole grain breads?
Yeah.
Whole grain breads are the best way for you to eat bread if you're going to eat bread. The problem with white bread is, again, it drops that sugar quickly in your bloodstream, and that's no good.
Does cinnamon bread do that too?
Cinnamon bread?
Cinnamon bread?
Cinnamon bread? And cinnamon bread usually has extra sugar in it. Because you can't, cinnamon by itself is a little bitter. But if you add sugar to it, and trust me, I like all this stuff. Look at me. I am not, first of all, I'm Puerto Rican. And one of the things we love is lechon. It's pork, roast pork. We're talking about putting a pig in a spigot and cooking it, and we eat the skin, and the garlic in it, and we eat the skin, which has the most amount of fat, and hot saturated fat. Pork rinds, right? So that's, pork rinds is lechon, the skin of the pork. So and you know where one of the places they make sugar? Puerto Rico. We grow sugar cane. My father used to jump on the back of the sugar cane trucks and he'd cut school, unfortunately. He was not one of the good kids. He would cut school, and he and his buddies, and would jump on the back of the sugar cane trucks and cut a piece of sugar cane and suck on it, and it's just pure sugar from the source. It's like unrefined. Oh, it's delicious. I had it when I was a kid. So I'm not talking as if I know better. Do it the way it should be done, because it's easy. I know how hard it is, but I'm telling you, it's not good for you. As much as I love it, I had to change because it was going to kill me. And I'm telling you, and it's the same for you. You're lucky that you're young. You can change now and give yourselves a life of health instead of disease. I'm not talking about living longer. Those of you that are like, I'm going to live young and hard, and I'm going to die early. Live hard and die early. Yeah. All right, so that attitude, I understand it, but let me be very clear. The danger is that you won't die, and that you'll suffer slowly for 60, 70 years and miserably walk the earth looking at everyone else living a good life and complaining all day with your little crutch, walking around saying, my blood hurts, I can't eat, I'm blah, 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 blah. That's the danger, right? It's not about it. And also, I'm going to tell you what, there's a lot in life that you guys haven't even thought of yet, that you haven't even thought about experiencing yet, that is in your future, if you choose it, that you're going to look back and say, man, I can't believe I thought that I wanted to live a short life. There's so much out there for you to experience in a good way. You should really think about trying to live a life, change your small habits, like eating goldfish, cheddar goldfish, and hot chips for breakfast.
I ain't eat it for breakfast. I'm eating it as a snack.
Okay. But I'm just saying, bottom line is, guys, you got to regulate what you eat, how much you sleep, and what you drink. And those three things, whatever you choose, make sure you understand, become educated on it, and make those choices wisely for the next 20 years, so that when you're an adult and you have money and you have a decent career, you actually can enjoy it, right? Yeah. Sleep? No, you need sleep. You need 8 hours of sleep. If you get less sleep, your brain starts to get impacted. You don't think straight. It starts impacting your health. Sleep is a necessary part of life. And someone your age who's growing, who's maturing, you guys need 8 hours sleep a night. If you get 6 hours, 6 to 8 hours is 6, I would say, is the minimum, but you should talk to your doctor.
Yeah, it'd be hard. I'm getting biology first.
Yeah, that's not true. Don't even bring that here. All right. Okay, so yeah.
Does avocados make you live longer?
The avocados have unsaturated fat. So again, not all fat is bad. Unsaturated fat is good for you. So again, speak to a nutritionist. Look at the different things out there. There's a lot of different opportunities for you to make a choice that fits your lifestyle, but make it a wise choice. Do some research. You guys, this is your life. This is your life. It's not my life. Make a choice. Don't let life happen to you. You happen to life. All right. So let's talk a little bit about this membrane. So you got this cell, and there's all kinds of organelles inside. We're not talking about that yet. But you have the nucleus, nucleolus, the endoplasmic reticulum, the rough endoplasmic reticulum, the small one. You have ribosomes, you have mitochondria, you have a Golgi body.
What type of membrane are we talking about right now?
Still the same membrane, the plasma membrane. So here at this plasma membrane, a lot of stuff is happening. You saw yesterday, what we looked at yesterday were these integral membrane proteins, right? These proteins, I don't know why someone is talking at this point, but if we could just try to focus. These proteins that act as channels, right? So they're channels. I want to remind you this is a cross-section. This is a side view or cross-section. So one of the things we can do with cells to look at them, and you'll look at them in the microscope, is we can freeze them or put them in a paraffin wax, and we can slice them very thinly. And we can look right in the middle, like right in the middle of one. So we can literally freeze them and break them in half and look in the inside. And you can see that this would be a channel that would allow normally these proteins, these charged particles couldn't get through. But now, because of this channel protein, this stuff gets through. And I say again, this is a word I said yesterday. I'm saying it now. You have a quiz on Monday. I would make sure I know it. Now, outside the cell, it is not an empty space. There's a lot of stuff out here. And one of the things that comes out of the cell are these. This is just a low mumbling in the back, continuous. It worries me. Yeah. Where? Channel protein, yeah.
And a green.
It's Na, sodium ion. Na is symbol for sodium, and the plus is the ion charge. So it's capital N, little a. Ion. Sodium ion. Na plus is sodium ion. Ion means charged, as we talked about in the first couple weeks of class, and sodium is an element. So when we look at the outside, there are these proteins that go all along the outside. All around the outside of the cell. Every cell has them. They're proteins, they're lipids, there's all kinds of, we call this the extracellular matrix. It's not extra in the sense that it is necessary, but it's extra because it's outside. So it's called the extracellular matrix. Now, one of the, and that, of course, as I said earlier, is the plasma or cellular membrane. So, the extracellular membrane, extracellular matrix has a lot of stuff that goes on. Obviously, when in this, I hope it's obvious that if this is a cell, it makes up your body. So when we look at, let's say, a blood vessel, I think a lot of people know that you have these kind of oval cells that are called red blood cells. They kind of look like little inner tubes. These are red blood cells. They're red because they have oxygen. Their oxygenated iron is in there. They become less red after they drop off their oxygen. They're moving down the blood. This is your blood. You have all kinds of other things in here. You have sugar. You have salt, sodium ion. You have chloride ion. You have potassium ion. You have amino acids. You put AA, amino acids, you have nucleic acids, you have fats. They come in different forms and different, so it's all in your blood, that's all getting distributed. This is the blood. The blood is the tissue, it's a tissue that delivers, everything you need, everything your cell needs. And takes away what they don't. So if there's anything your cell wants to get rid of, it puts it in the blood, and if there's anything your cell needs, it is also in your blood, because it delivers. It's the delivery system. So that's why you die without blood. Blood tissue, it's called a tissue because it's made up of more than one cell. It's a special type of cell. A special type, so you have red blood cells. You also have white blood cells. They don't really have a shape. You have antibodies in the blood as well. Those are proteins. You have different kinds of white blood cells in there. So blood is a solution. Blood is a tissue, but it's also a solution. And that solution is solvent. The solvent of this solution is water. So it's made mostly of water. Plasma is the blood without the blood cells. So take out the red and white blood cells, and everything else is called plasma. Plasma is still a solution whose solvent is water. But blood is everything, and plasma is just the blood without the. So you have antibodies in there, you have platelets in there. Platelets are the things that form clots, scabs. When you get a scab on a cut, those are made by platelets. They stop bleeding. So these little things called platelets, and you got little cells that make the platelets. So there's all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of interesting things happening in blood. There's even a whole medical field dedicated to it. They're called hematologists, doctors that specialize in blood. Every tissue has an organ system, has a doctor that specializes in it. So these cells, this is an artery or a vein. I guess you should know this. I guess something you might want to learn is that an artery takes blood away from the heart. And so the artery has high oxygen, high nutrients, right? Low CO2, low carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is one of the things your cells want to get rid of. A vein takes blood to the heart. And it has low oxygen, low nutrients, high waste, so urea, and high CO2. All right? And artery blood tends to be red, where I know a lot of people think that venous blood is blue. It's not. It really still bothers me. People still teach that, but unfortunately I can't do a color that I want to do, but I'll do this. venous blood in the vein. Why is it not choosing? Oh, I see. That's not what I need. Venous blood is actually close to black, very dark. A dark, dark color. It's almost black. If you ever give blood, or if you ever volunteer where people are giving blood, look at the blood they put in the bags. The blood that you put in the bags is taken from the veins, and that blood doesn't have a lot of oxygen in it because it's coming from the veins, and so you'll see it's very dark. It's almost black. It's not blue at all. All right. So that being said, that's what's happening in the blood. Now this blood, these things here, this vein, this artery is made of cells. It has cells, one next to the other, next to the other, next to the other, next to the other. It has nucleus and all the different organelles, right? Etc. that way and etc. this way. And when that blood also gets delivered to an organ, and I can't really draw this organ very well, but I'll just draw it like this. It's called the pancreas. And this pancreas has cells. And so blood comes in from the heart, through the artery, some kind of artery, and it goes back out through a vein. So all the organs work that way. An artery brings it the blood, and a vein takes it away. Again, these cells have a different shape. And there's a whole subject. If you're going to become a doctor, you'll take a whole class called histology. And in histology, I'm going to show you some of those blood cell types in just a minute on my iPad. But you'll learn to identify the difference between the connective tissue, or the cells that line your blood vessels, versus the cells that are in your pancreas, versus liver cells. They all have different functions, so they have different structures. So let me give you an example of what I mean. If you go to a shirt factory, what would you expect to see? Shirts, and you'd also expect to see sewing machines, right? And you'd expect to see cloth, right? Would you expect to see a lot of steel? Steel. Steel. Aluminum? No, because you don't make shirts with that, so you don't expect to see it. If you go to a pan factory, a factory that makes pans, you don't expect to see cloth, you expect to see steel, right? So by looking at what we see, don't put anything away yet. I know it's almost time to go. I got a minute, right? Or is it time to go? All right, so let me be very clear, guys. Hold on, before you go, let me give you one last instruction. Here's the instruction. Those of you that came late, I'm going to give you an assignment on Schoology where you're going to do a bell. When I give a bell work to everyone else, you're going to have an afternoon work for you to make up that bell work. Because I know being late first period is not your fault. Are we clear?
Yes, sir.
Also, as I said earlier, get on that YouTube channel so you can watch the video of the time you missed. Am I clear? Because there are things I'm telling you in the video that are important, like when are quizzes happening, when are tests happening, the content that we just discussed, that kind of thing. Okay? All right, have a good day, guys.